So I'm going to start off this by by wanting to kind of touch base on a video I did, um, where I was talking about Star Wars, and I want to get like a couple of things clear because I feel like I might have come off a lot differently than what I originally intended to, and I don't want to be seen as a hateful person. So let me just say this. I guess I'm considered a Star Wars purist, meaning that I hold the original trilogy to a much higher standard than the prequels and the current movies that as they go right now. That's not to say there's things about the movies that I don't like. I like how the prequels were trying to. I like the worlds that the prequels had. We got to see like the genesis of how everything that started episode 4 essentially began. The political aspect of it was really interesting, and I'm not gonna lie, there was a lot of things about the original, like 1 through 3, that I really liked. My issues are very simple with those. I didn't really like the casting, and the second movie was god awful boring, and the cheeky humor, comic relief, throwaway characters just didn't do it for me. That's not to say with this current trilogy there isn't stuff to like. I love the visuals of these movies. I think they're probably the best, given that they got hundreds of millions of dollars to work with them now. That's just to say I don't like what they're doing with a lot of the legacy characters. I feel there is a tad bit of disrespect toward the legacy characters, and I understand why I guess they want to do it. They want to go in a new direction. But to me, it just, I don't know. Just how they've done it over the last two main trilogy movies currently, I don't like it. So anyway, I just want to take the time to say this. If you like the movies, if you enjoy the movies, that's all that matters. I don't think you're wrong. I don't think my opinion is the end all be all. I'm telling you right now, that's just my opinion. So if I were to say on this channel that I'm not a fan of the Lord of the Rings series, there's a reason. Spoiler alert, I'm not a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings series. But to be fair, I saw those movies. I was in my late teens, early 20s, and I wasn't really invested in those movies. I remember the first two times I saw Fellowship of the Ring, I fell asleep. Two Towers I saw in theaters. I enjoyed it. And I remember Return of the King. I just remember like the 20 endings that followed. But my point is this. We all have our likes and our dislikes. And that's kind of what this video is. It's kind of like, where does that line end? And for me, I put a post in a group where I was talking about the director, or I was talking about Rian Johnson and how he was basically lowering himself to personal attacks to hardcore purist fans who were just having an opinion. Now, this people might not agree with. And I perfectly understand if you don't agree with it either. And I apologize if I seem a little low energy. Getting up earlier because you have a kid is fairly common now, but just like it takes me a little while to get like the engine running. But I will say this, okay? I will say this. He has every right to defend his product. He does. I think there's a difference between defending your product and then taking it one step too far. If you know what I mean, and I'll try to explain the best I can, okay? Before Facebook, before Twitter, before social media became its big thing, like anytime someone had a problem with it, they basically would. It was really just a verbal, or it was written in, or they did focus groups on these kinds of things, or the occasional on-camera interview. And then as like social media became bigger and bigger, people took their opinions online. Now, I'm not a genius, but I know for a fact that YouTube and Facebook have been around for a little while, so it's not like this now has become a new thing. people are defending their work all they want, but here's where I think the line should be drawn. Rian Johnson, he came in, and this is all fact, you can look it up. When he came in, he essentially took everything that J.J. Abrams was doing and pretty much just pumped the brakes on it. He wanted to lead it in his own direction, and that's what he did. Now, it's not for me to say if that's the right direction of the franchise. I also don't consider myself a humongous fan of the series, as I've said in a much older video. I like Star Wars. I really like the original trilogy. I'm not a fan of the prequels, and I'm not a fan of the direction this new series is going into. However, I don't doubt that there are things about these movies that are not fun and that people can enjoy. So, where does that go from here? When the director of a movie lowers himself to personal attacks on people on social media who are simply giving an honest opinion, the argument can be made here. It's like, at what point does the higher road get taken? Like, there are people who have made crap movies, and they still get roasted about it. And I'm sure at one point these directors have gone as far as to say, well, you don't have to like it. This is something I did because it was my passion project. Or you can do what he did, and that was make it personal. And he did. He made it personal. And you can argue it wasn't personal. He was defending his product. That's fine. But here's the thing. Star Wars, in my opinion, should not be a divisive subject. People should be able to share a different opinion about it. They may not be able to like it. But I think if we can achieve a nice happy medium in there, it's like we can like the movies, but we don't hold them to a higher regard. We don't like the new direction, but we can appreciate what we have. I think there's a nice area right there, right smack dab in the middle that we can all take advantage of and that we can all appreciate. The problem is that we have two kinds of people that are making that next to impossible. We have the hardcore super fans who are so 100% not going to hear what's being presented or see what's being presented and are going to bash it no matter what. And then we got what I like to call the soup. I don't want to call them enablers, but I don't know. I guess like the super fans who will blindly agree with whatever is being given to them and not point out any of the flaws that do exist. Now let's not BS ourselves. There are problems with these movies. There's problems with all the movies. We have to stop pretending they're perfect. And I'm not the kind of person that can subvert their own expectations in order to like what's being presented in front of me for the sake of just submitting to it. I've never been that guy. I did for episode 7 a little bit, and then after going back and rewatching it again, I don't know. There was a lot of things about it I didn't like, and I don't like how they're setting this up. Like, there's so much great setup to be had, and I feel like episode 8 was just like, it was pumping the brakes on a lot of it. And I'll explain what I mean by this. And again, if you disagree, you disagree. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, here's my opinion. Finn's story arc from episode 7. Okay? Finn is a character I can understand and relate to on a few different reasons. Number one, he's the kind of guy who got in. Clearly, he got in over his head when he joined the First Order, and then realized that this isn't why he wanted to do what he wanted to do. This is literally the first 5 minutes of episode 7, and then we notice that there is confrontation between him and Captain Phasma. I believe I'm saying her name right. Those two really didn't have an encounter in episode 7. They met up again, but on the next Death Star, in which they just kind of threw her in the garbage, the trash compactor. And then in episode 8, they meet up again, and then rather than execute him, which is what she originally was going to do, she then decided, let's engage in hand-to-hand combat, and spoiler alert, he ends up getting the upper hand. I'm not going to say what happened. I'm just going to say he got the upper hand. See, this right here could have been a golden opportunity for the franchise to do something different. What they could have done, and I've seen videos on this, and I 100% agree, I love this arc. This should have been a 3-movie arc conclusion for Finn. Instead of him worrying about, instead of people clamoring, oh, what about him and Poe? I don't care. Let Poe do his own thing. The more characters that have bigger arcs going on, I think the more invested we can be in everyone. And everyone we should be openly invested in. Here's what should have happened. Episode 7 should have had them squaring off Finn and Phasma one more time. Basically, it's Phasma's way of punishing him for not only rebelling against the First Order, but also as a means of putting him in his place, him being a coward, him not being good enough to join the First Order, and him basically fighting her, and she is just beating him down nonstop. I mean, we're talking like a one-sided ass-kicking. And the only way he makes it out, the only reason he makes it out is he gets saved. We'll say Rey saves him or Poe saves him. But the only way he gets out of there is because somebody was there to rescue him. Kind of like a hint as to what happened early in the movie when he was able to escape with Poe. He had the getaway. Episode 8 should have been like that internal struggle, like maybe I'm not a hero just because because I'm fighting for a cause. Like anyone can fight for a side and not do something. Like there's so many depths of being a hero that can be explored. And then he spends like the rest of episode 7 pondering that and leaves it kind of on like a darker note. And then we go into episode 8 and we notice like he's hurt and he's battered from his encounter with Kylo at the end of episode 7, and he's using that opportunity to train and get more powerful, and he wants to be what actually is an on the ground hero for the right reasons, prove that he is not a coward. So then, like, because again, we're talking about like the words of like a captain of the First Order. I mean, these are people who are perceived to be the deadliest in the universe, aside from Kylo and Snoke and the generals. But episode 8 should have been like him grappling with trying to find some identity, some kind of like inner courage, something to hold on to. And he's training and he's honing his ability. He's learning how to fight. And the best part is he's trying to do it kind of on his own, since Rey is not then learning how to become a Jedi from Luke. And then at one point they announce the mission that essentially gets them caught, and he's aware that Phasma is where they're going, so again, there's that internal conflict. And then again, they fast forward, end up getting captured, and Phasma does the stupid thing, and basically is like, oh, I challenge him to a duel. Now, I don't... Look. The argument's made, from a military perspective, that's dumb. And I've got to agree. The First Order, if you want to argue it's not a militarized system, you're dumb. Look at it. It's literally the largest military in the universe, you could argue. So, with that being said, she should have shot him. She should have executed him right there. She had no reason not to. The humiliation ending at the end of 7, I guess, could be the reason for it, but whatever. To me, no. I mean, your job is to execute the rebels because of their position in their rebellion. It's a blow to their morale. You take out their people of power they look up to. You take out their inspiration. It demoralizes them. It gets them. It scatters them. But no. So anyway, we'll keep that for the sake of it. Be like something along the lines of. And I was thinking, like, what if instead of that, because there was no reason for her to challenge him to a straight up duel, even though he had no freaking training whatsoever in the movie. But here he does. In my version, he does. In my version, he has training. And they're fighting because she says he's not worthy of an honorable death. Because basically an execution meant you're essentially dying a soldier. Okay? Some would argue it's the other way around. I think of it like this. If you're captured as a prisoner of war and you're executed, it means you're being executed to send a message. She wanted to humiliate him, and that's what this is. And I feel, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it now with current politics, but I have to agree with something our president said. He goes, you can beat your enemies and then you can humiliate them. Humiliating your enemies does more than just damage their morale. It pretty much makes them feel inadequate to continue. And it's kind of difficult to lead an army if you feel neutered. So anyway, they're fighting. He's taking what he has learned and he's putting it to use, and he is just barely holding off Phasma, and I do mean barely holding him off, or her off. He's not getting his ass kicked as nearly as much, but Phasma's still getting her licks in. And then finally, at the very end of the confrontation, there's the huge raid, and then, there is a huge raid. And basically what happens is, Phasma gets one good shot in on him, and then you have, like, your slow-mo head turn over to her, and he's pissed off, and he swings that laser axe, and he takes, like, a chunk off of her helmet, or he basically just takes off the helmet altogether, and we get to see who it is. This would be a good opportunity to spoil something. Other than that, I'd say this is a good opportunity for the people who want to argue that Phasma isn't a lady to know it's a lady. And spoiler alert, guys, ladies can be badasses too. And that's pretty much how you end it. And then after that, like, the destruction of what's going on around them is too great. They both have to escape. Episode 8 ends with the rebellion being crushed, the First Order on their tail, the deaths of all the characters, the in-conclusion to what's going on between Kylo and Rey. But the shining hope of all of this, and all of this, is that Finn finally is convinced himself that maybe, just maybe, he can actually be what is a hero. Because there's the hero aspect of what a Jedi is, and then there's the relatable hero that everyone else can obtain, because not everyone can be a Jedi. Maybe someday I'll talk about Rey and Kylo. I feel like there's so many hits and misses there, and to me, I felt like in that movie, they really didn't emphasize Rey's training. And she kind of went into episode 7, like, with no like, she is a scavenger, that's it. You can argue she has basic training, but she doesn't have Jedi formal training. We saw what happened to Luke in episode 5. He had very basic, minimal training, and he still got his hand cut off. Rey, on the other hand, was not only able to defeat one of the most powerful Sith Lords, and yes, Kylo is powerful. Please show me a video clip of Vader stopping a laser bolt dead in its track and then diverting it after force holding it to another direction. That's how powerful he is. I don't like the outbursts or the yelling or all the projecting that all the villains are doing. That's not how you show power. That's not how you show dominance. That just shows instability. A challenge, if you will. Watch Vader in episodes 4, 5, and 6, and watch how he and Peter Cushing's character, Grand Moff Tarkin, watch how they project, and watch how they deliver orders. Everything is said in a calm, clear tone. Vader raised his voice, I think, once or twice. Peter Cushing's character, everything was done in body language and in tone. They knew how to deliver a point without having to yell and scream and overly project. These new movies, everybody's screaming. And here's the thing. After a while, the screaming becomes extremely hilarious. So, they could argue, again, it's a whole new direction. The First Order isn't as powerful as it could claim to be. And if that's the argument you want to make, hey, I'm cool. But this is all open to interpretation. And I feel like if they could have focused more on that, rather than a love interest between a character that essentially means nothing in episode 8, and you could argue that it does, it doesn't make sense in context. That's the direction it's going for. Well, then it's pointless, because then the excuse has to get made that anytime a movie does something that's pointless, there's a reason for it. It's an inversion of our expectations. No, I don't agree with that. I think it was silly. I think if you completely cut out that one side mission aspect in episode 8, I really feel like the movie could have been a little bit more cohesive as a whole. There's a lot of things I would have done differently. I would have not had Rose kiss Finn. That made no sense, because he clearly did not show any interest in her. Another reviewer, Jeremy Johns, you've probably heard of him, he made a video talking about his opinion, because he had to see the movie twice to get an opinion on it. And I respect him for that. And this is a guy who praised The Force Awakens and loves the original trilogy. And he basically said that this movie was like, I don't want to misquote him, but I want to like he gave it like a C rating, and he said there was a lot of new directions and steps that he didn't approve of, and I agree. And the one thing he said in his Tales of the Spoiler Comments video, go and check it out for The Last Jedi. He said that made no sense, that kiss, because essentially it doesn't do anything. It doesn't project. It doesn't like move any plot forward. All it does is it adds an extra element or an extra side of the story that really doesn't have explanation. Now, what he suggested, and I agree, was if they do not kiss whatsoever, and she dies after she says like we fight for the things that we love, we fight the things that we love, or if we fight for the things that we love, I think is what she says, and then she dies. And he's left pondering that. It's okay to leave some things ambiguous. Dr. Seuss did it with his old like short movies for years. It got people to think. It got them to like really open the doors. But that's just it. Like, it's not a bad movie, but it's in a direction that a lot of people don't want to go. There's a lot of social politicking. And a lot of people just aren't on board. They're just not on board. And I can understand them for that. It's the same reason why people are tuning out of sports, because they don't tune in for political commentary. Movies, comics, sports, we watch them to escape what's going on in the real world and have our time there. And with that, I say cool. And if you're the kind of person that likes politics and anything, Godspeed to you. I couldn't do it. But I just want to say this. When it comes to the director going on social media and bashing people, I feel that we have to agree to disagree on some things. Yes, he can defend what he has, and he has every right to say what he says. However, as a human being, I also have the right to disagree with what he's saying. Him getting pissy with fanboys because they don't agree with characters like Rose, they don't agree with they don't agree with plots of the movie, they don't agree with the new direction. It's like, you have to understand something, okay? You have to understand, okay? And if I'm getting my movies wrong, I do apologize. But he was defending both people having issues to say about he was defending both The Last Jedi and Solo. So anything I'm saying is in context to that. People saying they have a problem with these newer movies. I mentioned why I think a lot of people got deterred away from Solo. It's not a bad movie. It's just that a lot of people weren't sold on the lead actor and they weren't sold on the premise. But we have to agree to disagree on a lot of things. And I know this video is running long, so consider this a short podcast, if you will. All right. The problem with that double standard is that it opens the door for who gets the actual it opens the door for who's allowed to get the pass and who isn't. Are fans really not supposed to let the directors of these movies know how they feel, especially when here's the thing, because they put themselves on social media. Rian Johnson, Kathleen Turner, all these people, Miss Tran, I forget her first name. She seems like an adorable person in real life, the person who played Rose. They put themselves on social media. You put yourself out there. So the argument made that, if you don't want to be the subject matter of critique, then don't put yourself out there to be critiqued upon. And furthermore, there's way better ways to handle this. Like, Tran, all she had to do was basically come out and say, I'm sorry you people didn't like the movie. The director had a vision. I merely played the role I was given. I will try to do better in my personal ventures. Just be as human as she can about it. And then people were harassing her, and she deleted her profile. Then you get to Rian Johnson, who's basically like, oh no, that ain't gonna happen. I'm gonna attack, because screw you if you don't like my movie. And this is where the double standard is. I disagree that he should be allowed to do it without consequence, but then you're gonna turn around and people are going to insult the purist fans for simply having an opinion. Now, I'm going to give something back to some of you on this, okay? A lot of the purist fans, come here. A lot of the purist fans are assholes. And I do agree that a lot of them should not be saying some of the stuff that they are saying. However, we live in an age, depending on which country you live in, I don't really think it matters. When it comes to opinions in movies, it's all pointless. Everyone's going to have an opinion. I think some of us need to have some slightly thicker skin, myself included, when it comes to dealing with this. I'm sick and tired of people feeling like they have to meet these assholes on the same level they are. No, I'm different. Here's my thought. If someone doesn't like a movie that much, you know what I tell them? I'm sorry you feel that way. Is there anything about this movie that you could possibly enjoy? Anything at all? Just out of curiosity. Maybe we can find some common ground. And if they still persist and want to be a dick, let them be a dick. Let them do what they want to do. I don't care. But we have to stop taking the small groups as the whole, okay? These douchebag super fanboy, like these douchebag super purists, they do not represent the gray matter of people who are like, I just don't like where the movies are going. I don't like the politicking, because that's a lot of people. That is a lot of people, and they far outweigh the super hardcores. I promise you this. I promise you. I'm just saying. The director should have a little more common sense and a little more decency, I'd argue, because keep in mind, he's portraying the image of Disney in this regard. And last I checked, who wants to get invested in movies if the director is going to come out and basically slam people for disliking the movie? There goes your difference of opinion right there. The mouse is now letting these directors basically have the last laugh. And that's not how it should be. It should be open to interpretation. It should be open to criticism. I'm sorry, but that's how freedom of speech works in this country. And if you're from another country and you think that we all need to be praising this movie for everything it's given, no, I have to disagree. Just like if I were to tell you how I think, like, Back to the Future is the greatest movie of all time, and if you don't agree with me, you're wrong. Doesn't that piss you off? And I get it. You feel like someone's attacking you here because Star Wars is right here to you. I get that, I do. But here's the reality. That's not what they're doing. They're judging it on their merit, and people are taking it as a personal, and that's how we're having all this fighting. And I think because of all the conflict, that's why I think Rian Johnson should at least be a little bit more understanding. So we'll see what happens if he's going to even have anything to do with Episode 9, because there's actually people petitioning to get this removed from canon. But there's been rumors of them putting Kenobi and Boba Fett on hiatus. They're kind of like really slowing down a Star Wars movie spin-off series. So my guess is we're going to probably get a trailer for Episode 9 within the next year, and we'll see it around Christmas within the next year or two. So that's what I think is going to happen. But again, if anything I had said makes me come off as negative, I'm trying to explain why people do what they do when it comes to this series. It's a very love-hate relationship right now, and it's been that way since the prequels. And I can definitely understand the frustration with the prequels. I get it. And I get why people really want to jump on the bandwagon now. But I also think we have to stop making it so damn personal. This isn't if you don't like the movies, this isn't a personal attack on people who like the movies. This is just somebody saying, there's things about these movies I don't like, but if you enjoy them, good for you. I've always been a fan of that, at least. If you can find some joy and merit out of it, great. That's going to do it. Hopefully I'm done talking Star Wars for a while. I have other Star Wars fan theories in mind, but in all honesty, I'm spent out. I'm tired. I have things I got to do to get ready for a garage sale this weekend, so I'm going to start packing it up. And like I said, if you have anything to say in the comments below about it, that's fine. And again, for the millionth time, if you like these movies, that's awesome. And if you're local and you're like, hey man, let's watch the movie together. You might like it. You know what my answer is going to be? Sure, let's hang out and watch the movie together. Because above all else, if the best, and the kind of phrase Wonder Woman, if at the very least I can at least make a friend through Star Wars, even if I don't like the movies, I would love to do that every single time. And I think that's a good thing we can all follow. So that's going to do it for me. I'm going to see you all later. I do apologize for the 30+ minute video, but I had a lot I wanted to get off my chest. And again, if you disagree, keep it down, put it in the comments. Just be cordial about it. I'm trying to make sense of a lot of things because a lot of people feel like their opinions are being attacked, and they're not. It's just me having an opinion that people don't agree with that feel like they need to defend. And I hate to tell you this, but I'm not making this because I think you're wrong. I'm making this because I feel that there's things wrong with it. Them. Disney. So, anyway, that's going to do it for me. I'll talk to you later.